Hi there, I'm Abby. I'm with LDV Capital. We invest in people building businesses powered by visual technology. We thrive on collaborating with deep technical teams that leverage computer vision, machine learning, and artificial intelligence in order to analyze visual data. This is our series, The Women Leading Visual Tech. The purpose of our series is to highlight some of the top ladies whose work in visual technologies are revolutionizing business and society. We hope that by bringing together all these fantastic female entrepreneurs, investors, and technologists, that we build a community that's really about helping each other succeed and paying it forward within the visual tech space. In this episode, I had the pleasure of chatting with Nour Karessli. She's a senior data scientist at Zalando, which is Germany's multinational e-commerce company. She's utilizing state-of-the-art computer vision and AI techniques to leverage the visual cues present in fashion images to better understand the complex problem of size and fit. Additionally, she sits on the organizing committee of Zalando Data Science Community and is responsible for organizing weekly community sessions as well as an annual 2-day conference called the Zalando Data Science Days. Nour is a co-organizing the Women in Computer Vision workshop that's also held in conjunction with CVPR in 2021. She holds a bachelor's degree in computer science focused on software engineering from Damascus University. She completed her master's in computer science from Saarland University focused on machine learning and computer vision. And Nour started her career as a research institute at a German institution whose name I cannot pronounce, but is written in the comments, as well as the Max Planck Institute for Informatics. She worked on the EFFECT project that aims to aid users in choosing optimal bicycle routes using the shared information among cyclers. Later, she joined IM, it's a global photography community and marketplace. And as a computer vision engineer, she was working on low shot learning for image classification using concept embedding and machine learning. In this session, we had the opportunity to talk about size and fit and the future of fashion from an e-commerce perspective. I really hope that you enjoy the listen, and next time that you're shopping online, you give it some thought. Enjoy. So Nour, thank you so much for joining me today for Women Leading Visual Tech. I'm really excited to have you on here to talk about a lot of your work, what you've been doing at Zalando, and even before then. So for everybody who's tuning in at the moment, I just wanted to kind of start out by saying, how do you describe what you do in one line?
So first of all, thanks for having me. Really glad to be here. Yeah, what I'm doing at Zalando, I'm applied scientist. We're working on machine learning and computer vision solutions to help customers getting the right size and fit from the first time that they buy items.
So how much of a problem do you think that this really is for people, right? Like, is it really that big of a thing that people don't know their size?
It is actually. It's, I mean, it's something that we also face in offline shopping. So when you go to stores and you try things on, this is the process of checking things up, and this is missing in online shopping. And even in stores, it's not very trivial. So usually you get 2-3 sizes of the same item to find the right one. And in online, it's all missing. So you only have the photos and a few descriptions of the items. You can try to relate to how the model's body look like in comparison to yours. But usually you have this delayed feedback until you get the item and feel the fabric and see how it's going to look like on you. So I can tell you that around 50% of the items that they are purchased online get returned. And almost 1/3 of these returns is because of size and fit, because what people see on the photos is not what they get in real life.
Interesting. And so, I mean, like, at least as a starting point from an e-commerce perspective, like having people be able to virtually try on these things, is that where you're going to try to go with it? Or do you think that's going to stay more in matching people between the items in their current size and what they think the supposed size is?
I have to say it's a mixture of many solutions. So I don't see the size and fit problem to be solved with one solution. It's there's one term that we use in the team that it's really like a mountain peak, and to get there you have so many directions that you can take. So I think what we're trying to solve is not going to be served into just one algorithm at the end. It's really multiple solutions that can be served based on the context, who's the customer, how new they are to the platform, what we know about them, and what they are willing to share also with us. Also the items that we are, so it depends really on the item category. It's really so many pieces into the puzzle to pick the right solution.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, let's delve into that a little bit more. And before then, like, I'll back it up a bit and say, have you always known that you wanted to pursue a career in deep tech, or was it the fashion side of things that was like more intriguing to you at the beginning?
No, I have to say it's tech. This is really important question because nowadays it's many people who are switching careers into tech, or they even started in something else and they suddenly found themselves in tech. I think I was one of the few lucky ones who knew from the beginning, kind of. So yeah, earlier in my life when I was a kid, I was very much into video games. Used to spend hours on video games with my siblings, solving puzzles, and yeah,
Okay, which one was
understanding
your
how.
favorite?
So Sims, the Sims was
Uh-huh.
really my favorite, building houses and
Yeah.
and making people fight and love each other and make up. It's really funny. Yeah, but in high school when I started to learn programming, I really got into coding. It was the same time almost with the social media platforms hit up. So yeah, I got really interested into web development and how things were built and connected.
Right.
And yeah,
Am I going to age myself and say, was this a MySpace page where you got to actually like personalize the entire page? Because I love
exactly.
doing that.
Exactly, MySpace was the first one I think I used, and yeah, there were a couple others that I don't even remember the names, and they died out. And then Facebook and all the others, they it all stick. Yeah, then I decided to go into computer science school, and I studied there. I was focused on software engineering, but then I shifted in my master's to AI and computer vision.
Fascinating. So, what do you think was like the impetus behind that? Did you have a professor or somebody that you really looked up to as a role model who helped you, make the switch, or in general fostered your interest in the AI side of things?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of it was really the people around that I've seen. So we had so many brilliant professors when I was doing my master's, and also the mixture of courses that I had. I think it slowly led me into this path. So I was very interested in at the beginning in user experience, how people perceive things, and also some like really visual understanding, the cognition of interfaces. And then I was also interested in AI, how it works, how we can control robots and agents. And then it's all kind of combined together when I started to work on my master thesis. It was on the topic of understanding the human gaze information to help machine learning classification tasks.
Gotcha. And so, can you give me an example of what that would be? Like, what was one of the things that you looked at in order to understand human gaze a little bit better?
Yeah, so the idea that we had is that the task we were trying to solve is kind of a specific task in machine learning for zero-shot classification. So an example would be when you're talking to a kid who never seen a zebra, you can describe it by saying it's similar to horse, but with white and black stripes. And they, even without seeing any, they would imagine how it would look like. And the idea was to use a similar method, but with instead of having textual description, is using the gaze information. So what we had is really this experiment setup where we recorded participants' gaze, how they look at the different classes. We had set up like a game that you usually see in the newspaper where you get two similar items and you try to find the differences. So we had something very clever and ask people to find the correct class. so the category. And from their gaze pattern, we try to build category descriptors and use that for the machine learning.
Interesting. And so what was an example of something that was a category that you were looking for people to be able to correctly identify? What was it?
We applied that to many, and yeah, it was mostly birds and pets, so cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like a bit also specific for fine grained classes. So to really try to differentiate between different woodpeckers or different sparrows, for example.
Gotcha.
So really on fine grained level of birds.
And so what did that teach you about like human intelligence versus that you need to replicate with the algorithms that you're building?
I think it taught me a lot. It's really like our vision system is fabulous. Like how we perceive things and how we recognize things in really short amount of time is amazing. Like how we visit different features of a category and make decisions was very, very interesting for me to see how different people do it. Also, like our experiments showed that it's really not one method, you know, like you have different methods, and if you combine them from different people, you get better descriptors because each one of us have their own kind of algorithm in their mind to recognize stuff.
So I love thinking of it that way too. Like
amazing.
Our whole lives are kind of like our programming, right? Where we're collecting a variety of different data and we're learning different things. And so that's what built, you know, the whole need for having a variety of different people from a variety of different backgrounds at the table all the time, because it ultimately leads to better decision making or better perspective as a whole, right?
Definitely, definitely.
And so, you know, how did you transition from looking at gaze analysis into kind of the future of fashion and the way in which people, you know, select the things that they're going to wear and how it's going to fit them? I mean, I can see like some of the correlation there, but what was it that was most intriguing for you about it?
Yeah, I mean, fashion is very interesting, right? It's a big part of our life, with, even if we don't really realize it or spend too much time on it. It's really a big part of our life. It's really the way we express ourselves, is what we wear. So I think, yeah, the transition for me was a bit smooth, I have to say. So I was in a different company before Zalando. I was also doing computer vision there. And yeah, when I transitioned to Zalando, fashion was really one of the buying things for me, because I thought it's very personal for people's lives, and I really wanted to have this kind of impact on people. Yeah. So I mean, you can do a lot with computer vision, but some solutions and some applications are very impactful, and I thought I want this kind of huge and tangible impact on people's life. And that's why I thought also corporate like Zalando, that has millions of customers, is really the right place to go.
Fascinating. That's such a neat perspective, that it is a personal thing, right? Like the moment that like we go into the dressing room, right? If we're in store to try things on, it is very personal, right? Like you don't really want anybody, you know, watching you as you're in there. And, you know, half the time you don't even come out with the things on to show whoever it is that you're shopping with, right? And so figuring out, you know, like the personal relationship with e-commerce, right? Getting into what you're talking about a little bit earlier, in terms of people not necessarily being willing to share the data or their information. You know, how do you overcome that? Or how do you say like, hey, it's worth it for you to share this information because I can tailor and personalize this experience for you?
Yeah. I think it's a process. So there are multiple ways also to tackle this. So first, starting to share and give information to build the trust. So when we give advice, size advice, we don't do it only on personalized level. We have different types of recommendation, and one of them is really article centric. So we don't tell the customers what they should buy or what exact size they need to pick. We just tell them what we know about the items. And just doing this, it builds the trust that we are sharing what we know. We have a lot of items, we have a lot of data, it's on large scale. And when we share this, it kind of starts to build this trust between us and the customers. And then comes the dialogue. So what we also offer in the team, we have products to give the customers the space to express themselves to us. So give us the feedback in not a very overwhelming way. So we ask them to just describe it briefly if it was too big, too small, and not for me. So very simple and brief, and then you're not very overloaded. But for more engaged customers, you can offer more advanced solutions. So asking them more about their usual sizes, measurements of their body, so more sensitive information. And I think the connecting part to maintain the trust is really to be transparent about what information you use and how you want to use it to give this recommendation.
Makes a lot of sense. And so one, like establishing that trust relationship, right? Seems like it's critical for you. And then two, being transparent in the way in which data is collected and the way in which data is used is going to be like a key element to trust. It sounds
Exactly.
like. Of all of those customers that you guys have on Zalando, what percentage of them now do you feel like actively share their information with you or give you feedback?
I think many of the people share their, at least like while returning, So one thing that is very kind of small signal that we get when people return their items, that it didn't fit them. So just simply by doing that, and a lot of people return, of course, you already know something about what they prefer. So just telling us, if they share with us that the reason for the return is due to size and fit, we start giving them more personalized recommendation. But we can offer the advice even from the day one. So that's I think the beauty of having article-centric advices, because then you're not only relying on the customer to share their data, you're also offering what you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because like I know I don't use Zalando that much anymore because I in the US, right? But when I used to live over in Switzerland, I'd use Zalando a lot. But I still use like ASOS, for example. Don't be angry. And ASOS automatically recommends to me, like, hey, we recommend that you actually size up in this item, right? When I'm looking at something, or, you should size down in this item, and it gives me a recommended size. But that's still just based on my feedback in terms of the things that I've returned and the things that I haven't returned, right? So there's not necessarily too much sophistication to it. Where does like the actual vision component come in, right? Where does your work come in on the computer vision side of things that actually helps people with fit?
Yeah, so 3 years ago when I started at the company, the team was building a lot of algorithms, mostly around the return and purchase data. So a lot of the models we have in production, they were based on these types of data sets. And when I started, we had this idea to use images of articles for size and fit. And at the time, it sounded a bit risky to think that you can see the size and the fit of the items from the images, because like they usually put on mannequins or fashion models, and I mean it's taken from different perspectives and it doesn't maybe show too much the information that we're looking for. But the idea that we had is because this kind of advice that you get for the too big and too small, for example, or buy one size up, one size down, it requires some data for new articles until you can start to judge these articles. So as soon as the new item is uploaded to the platform, you can judge it by not more than its description. But once you start to get purchases and returns, it might be a bit too late in the process to start to judge it. And the idea that we had is that we can leverage these images and this visual data that we have on the articles to learn this relationship between the visual appearance of a garment and its sizing behavior. So we developed a model that really takes the article image and learn from the visual appearance of the item, from its the interrelation between the dimensions of the item, if it's going to have some sizing issues or not. And this model is in production. It's used as an early signal to provide the size advice as soon as possible.
Fascinating.
So you have the item online, you can start to judge it by its look.
Gotcha. And so something like the elasticity of an item, right? Like, that it's going to be a tighter fit thing because it's got the elastic nature. Like these are the super stretchy jeans versus, very structured ones. It sounds like your algorithm can pick up on those kinds of things. That's fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so I can presume, like that also then takes on like another, or at least starts to take on another challenge, right? That e-com seems to have, which is like that touch and feel component, right? Like, people, one of the big drivers behind returns in e-commerce, besides the fit, is just on like the touch and feel. You ordered something and you thought that it would feel one way, or it looked like it would be super soft and fuzzy, but then you get it and it's actually like woolly and tough, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that as kind of like the next step for you guys to be able to do, is to report on, what is the texture of these garments as well?
So the texture is really interesting question, I think, but it's I think one step before that is really unsolved at the moment is really the whole fit of the garment. So when you think about how things will look like on you,
like the weight and the drape and all of that kind of fun stuff.
Exactly. And you start to think about this 3D personas, right? So immediately, the first thing that comes to your mind is really to visualize these items on a 3D persona and see where it's going to be loose, where it's going to be tight, if it's going to be too tight. And then you get some, from what you know about the fabric, you can say this is elastic, so it's going to be it's going to be elastic in some parts and tight into part and other parts. So I think the first step before texture for us is really to get the 3D virtual fitting.
Gotcha. And so that's where, like, as you're talking about before, is the next piece of the puzzle. It's like this virtual try-on thing. So that instead of it being just, like a filter that just sits on top and has like that uncanny type look to it, right? That you actually want the garment to be able to fit somebody in 3D, so you can see how it realistically would look from a shape perspective, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, exactly. And also that somebody should look as similar as you, right? So it should be really resembling the body of the customer.
Yeah, it's always such a disappointment when you've like seen this, dress on a beautiful model in the pictures and you order and you're like, why don't I look like that in it, right?
Exactly. Like this expectations versus reality, right? But what do you have in mind?
That we've always kind of like had in our mind, right? Is like, do people actually want to see themselves digitally in a garment? Or would we much rather see like a beautiful model in the garment and that helps us purchase it, right? And so, have you guys seen any direction there in terms of, is our mentality changing a little bit around seeing ourselves virtually and seeing, a replica of ourselves try things on?
Yeah, this is really amazing question. I think it's very, very important because it's not very trivial to many people to think about how complicated it is to show the customers what their body would look like in front of them. It's not, like we perceive ourselves in very different way from what the world perceives us. So we only see ourselves with mirrors and from a very different perspective. And when you see yourself after being 3D scanned, is usually like, wow, do I really look like that? It's not what you expect, right? It can be positive or negative way, but it's always shocking to see yourself from a very different perspective. It's like when you record your voice, right? So when I record my voice and hear it back again, always surprising. Yeah, I think what we do, like, yeah, we do a lot of user research and try to, for example, show them prototypes of how things will look like and get their feedback. This is really important piece of our work to understand how willing people are to take this kind of solutions. Yeah, I mean, as you described, it's not always the best solution to show, and people can choose not to see that, so that they would rather see it on the model and not on themselves. That's why I said at the beginning, there is no one solution, because it's really up to the person to pick what fits them.
Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting that, you know, we've, you know, like over the past year, right, where like everything has gone online and we sit in these Zoom calls all the time, right? Like there's been all of these metrics about how facial reconstruction surgeries have changed, right? Like chin tucks have gone up like an astronomical amount in the US, and all these kinds of things, because people are looking at themselves constantly on the screen. And it's one of the reasons why I think there's like such like mental burnout, but kind of tying it to this, right? Like, you know, people aren't necessarily changing in the way in which they want to see themselves on screen. And so, you know, if I think about, you know, like avatars as a whole in the fashion space, one of the things that I'm super interested in personally is, you know, like, what is the role of digital fashion as we move forward, right? So considering that we exist so much as these digital versions of ourselves, you know, how far off are we from being able to buy clothing that could fit us digitally as we sit in on a call or something like this?
Yeah, I think we're not so far off. So if you look at the filters and what people are using now, like with the backgrounds, I don't think it's very far in the future that we start doing this, you know, especially if we continue to be in this pandemic situation with the remote work and everything. I think it's there is a big chance that we start to buy clothes online and just have them digitally.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like one of there's examples like the Fabricant, right? Selling $9,000 digital dresses that really are only made to, like, you know, be fitted to you in your Instagram feed or something like this. And so what you know, like it kind of comes down to, is this going to be a bunch of graphic artists who are taking a digital rendering of a piece of clothing and fitting it to somebody, or is there the potential using some of these like fit technologies like you guys are developing to automatically enable people to wear things for their, you know, TikTok dance or their Zoom call, or, you know, as they stream themselves on Twitch? You know, do you think that there's going to be a real market for that? And is it technically feasible?
I think it's yeah, I mean, it depends, of course, how realistic it's going to look like, but the direction we're looking at is very similar. So we try to give this 3D model with the 3D item and really show where it's going to be tight, where it's going to be loose, and really mimic the whole situation of the fitting. So I think if you think about it, like just making the video or taking images out of this is not very far off. So it's feasible, I would say, technically. Maybe not so realistic as of today, but in the future, I think it's going to be a thing. But the way I see it with fashion is that even if you exist digitally, it has to meet some physical requirements. You know, like at least you need to make sure that what you have from the fabric, from the cut, that it's really feasible to manufacture this item and deliver it if customers wants to. I think because at some point even if we spend too much time in the digital world, especially with fashion, there might be moments that you really want to materialize what you see and have it in real life.
Yeah. For sure. I think it's really interesting. Obviously, as somebody who, used to love gaming and The Sims, for instance, if you could shop on Zalando for, a cool dress that you like or a pair of shoes, and you could choose to export it to your character in The Sims and then buy it for your real life person, is that something that's intriguing?
Yeah, I think it's maybe not for me at this age now, but there's definitely a market for it. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Are there any other applications of computer vision or deep learning that are like really exciting for you at the moment?
Well, I think when it comes to fashion, at least, this article generation is very interesting. Especially, I think what can be happening next, and very connected to what we are talking about, is bringing the customer in the loop when they're also part of the designing phase, So
Interesting.
kind of tailoring things to your own taste and own preferences of fit, for example, or shape. So maybe
Yeah.
I like someone's dress, but in a slight different fit or a slight different length. I think this can be really the next thing for fashion, and especially online fashion, because then you can show things online and allow customers to play with it.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I think that we've all probably done that, right? Where like you've seen something and you're like, oh, I would really like that if it was just a little bit longer. Or I would really
Exactly.
like that if like it didn't have those sleeves or something like that. And so if you're able to, customize specific elements of it within like your shopping experience, that would totally be revolutionary.
Yeah, that would be great actually.
Cool, fascinating. So love chatting with you. And one of the ways that we always like kind of wrap it up is I ask a question that says, if there were no computers that existed in this world, what do you think your career choice would have been?
This is really interesting question. No computers. I can't even begin to think how life would be without computers to think about my career. um, I don't know. I think I would be into the medical field, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Having a doctor from my family, I was influenced also and tempted to go there. But yeah, my love for computers was stronger. But I think if that was not a choice, I
Well, that's fantastic. Nour, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about the future of fashion and all of the super exciting stuff that you're working on at Zalando and your master's thesis projects. It's been a pleasure to learn more about all of the exciting advancements in the space.
thank you. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I also
Look
love
forward
this
to future
chat.
opportunities to collaborate. Thank you.